Get your hands off me. Ma'am, you need to leave the premises. I have an appointment. Not anymore, you don't. The morning Viveca Holt got thrown out of the Hartwell Regional Medical Center, she was wearing a gray zip-up hoodie, worn at the left cuff, and a pair of dark jeans she'd had since her residency. Her hair was pulled back the way she always pulled it back when she had somewhere to be, not because she was in a hurry, but because she genuinely did not think about her hair when she had somewhere to be. That had always been her way. Her mother used to say it like a complaint. Viveca, you walk into a room like you forgot what mirrors are for. She never did forget. She just didn't think mirrors had much to say that mattered. She was 44 years old. She had driven herself to the hospital in a 7-year-old Volvo with a cracked cup holder and a parking permit from a medical conference, 3 states away, still hanging from the rearview mirror. She had stopped at a gas station for coffee because the coffee was fine and she didn't need it to be better than fine. She had a meeting at 9 with the newly appointed hospital administrator, a man named Gordon Fleiss, who had been in the job 11 days and had, in those 11 days, already rescheduled twice. She was not annoyed. Viveca was rarely annoyed. She was, however, precise about time. She walked through the main entrance at 8:52. She wore no lanyard, no badge, no blazer. She carried a canvas tote bag with the straps starting to fray and a travel mug that said Oceanside Half Marathon 2019 on the side, which she had never run but had received as a gift and kept because it held 16 ounces exactly and had a lid that didn't leak. The lobby of Hartwell Regional was the kind of lobby that had been redesigned recently enough to still smell like fresh paint and pretension. New floors, new signage, a coffee kiosk where there hadn't been one before. Viveca noted all of it the way she noted most things, quietly, completely, without broadcasting that she'd noticed. She approached the reception desk. The woman behind it, young, 25, name tag reading Kenzie in large sans-serif letters, was typing something and did not look up. "Good morning," Viveca said. Kenzie finished her sentence, or what she decided was a sentence, and then looked up. Her eyes moved over Viveca the way eyes sometimes do when they've already made a decision. Down, then up. A half-second assessment. The hoodie, the jeans, the fraying bag strap. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for a 9 o'clock with Administrator Fleiss." "Viveca Holt." Kenzie typed something, looked at the screen, typed again. "I don't see you on his calendar. He may have listed it under the board meeting block. It's a private appointment." "Ma'am, if you're not in the system, could you call his office directly?" Kenzie's expression shifted the way expressions shift when someone decides they are being inconvenienced rather than helped. "I can't just call every time someone walks in and says they have an appointment." Viveca set her travel mug on the counter. "Not hard. Just set it down." "I understand," she said, "but I drove 40 minutes and Administrator Fleiss confirmed this meeting personally. If you could just—" "Ma'am." Kenzie leaned forward slightly, the way people lean forward when they want to be clear without raising their voice. "I'm going to need you to step aside so I can assist other guests." There were no other guests. Viveca looked at the empty space to her left, then back at Kenzie. She said nothing. She picked up her travel mug and stepped back 3 feet and waited. She had learned, a long time ago, that you could learn more in 3 minutes of quiet than in 30 minutes of argument. In those 3 minutes, she counted the ceiling-mounted security cameras in the lobby. 4. She noted that the fire exit nearest the coffee kiosk had a door stopper wedged beneath it, which was a violation. She noted that the new floor tile had been laid slightly uneven near the east wall, which would eventually cause a liability issue. She noted the name on the badge of the security guard near the elevator bank, Darnell Pruitt, and the number on the badge below it, 1147. She had been doing this since medical school. Her attending back then, a woman named Dr. Esther Park, who retired to Vermont and still sent Viveca a card every Christmas, had told her once, "The room is always talking. Most people are just too loud inside their own heads to hear it." Viveca heard it. At minute 3, a man in a blue security uniform approached. He was broad, not tall, and he walked with the particular stride of someone who had decided before arriving that this was going to be simple. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to exit the building." Viveca turned to face him. "On what grounds?" "You don't have a confirmed appointment. You're disrupting lobby operations." She looked at the empty lobby. "Is that what I'm doing?" It wasn't a question. He heard it as defiance. "Ma'am, my name is Viveca Holt. I have a meeting with Gordon Fleiss at 9 o'clock. I've been standing here quietly for 3 minutes waiting for someone to confirm that with his office. That's the entirety of what I've done. Then you can wait outside. I'd prefer to wait in here. That's not an option. She studied him. Badge number 2203. Name, T. Beaumont, which she filed next to the fire exit violation and the uneven tiles in the 4 cameras. His jaw was set the way jaws set when someone has stopped listening and started performing. All right, she said. I'd like to note, for the record, that I'm leaving voluntarily and under protest. He didn't know what to do with that sentence. He moved to her left, not touching her, but close. The physical language of I will if I have to. Viveca walked toward the exit at her own pace, which was steady and unhurried, and made T. Beaumont almost have to slow down to stay beside her. At the door she stopped. One thing, she said. Ma'am, the fire exit by your coffee kiosk has a door stopper under it. That's a code violation. You'll want to address that before your next inspection. She walked through the automatic doors and into the pale October morning. The steps outside Hartwell Regional were wide and white and newly sealed. Viveca stood on them and finished her coffee. It had gone lukewarm, but she didn't mind lukewarm. She was thinking about the fire exit, about the tiles, about the way Kenzie had looked at her, that quick slide of the eyes that had nothing to do with appointment systems and everything to do with the hoodie and the fraying strap and the assumptions that attach themselves to both like burrs. She had been looked at that way before. She would be looked at that way again. She took out her phone and called her assistant, a woman named Petra, who had been with her for 6 years and who answered on the first ring at all hours because that was simply how Petra operated. I'm outside Hartwell Regional, Viveca said. They didn't let me in. A pause. I'm sorry? Security escort. Lobby. No confirmed appointment in the system. Another pause. When Petra spoke again, her voice had the quality of someone choosing their words from a very specific drawer. Do you want me to call Administrator Fleiss directly? No. Viveca watched a sparrow land on the railing 3 feet away and tilt its head at her. I want you to call the board chair. Tell him I was here. Tell him what happened. Then I want you to pull the last 6 months of incident reports from this facility and have them ready for me by 2. Viveca and Petra. Don't call Fleiss. She hung up. The sparrow was still watching her. She thought it looked skeptical, which she appreciated. Inside the lobby, T. Beaumont had returned to his post near the elevator bank. Kenzie had resumed typing. The morning moved the way mornings move in hospitals, which is to say it moved in layers. Wheelchairs and clipboards and coffee cups and the soft, persistent beep of something always somewhere needing attention. Gordon Fleiss arrived at 8:58. He was 51, recently promoted, and still in the phase of his tenure where he believed the right suit and the right stride could substitute for knowledge he hadn't yet acquired. He walked through the lobby with the particular energy of a man who expected the room to rearrange itself around him, and mostly it did, because most rooms do when a man walks like that. He stopped at Kenzie's desk. Has Dr. Holt arrived? Kenzie looked up. A woman came in earlier. Said she had an appointment. She wasn't in the system. Fleiss frowned. What woman? Gray hoodie, jeans. Said her name was Viveca Holt. The color did not drain from Gordon Fleiss's face all at once. It left in stages, the way light leaves a room when the sun moves behind clouds. First his forehead, then around his mouth, then the particular whitening around the eyes that has no polite name, but that everyone who has ever made a serious error recognizes immediately upon seeing it in the mirror. Where is she now? Kenzie glanced at T. Beaumont. Beaumont, who had been listening from across the lobby, straightened slightly. She was non-compliant. I asked her to where is. She outside, sir, on the steps. I can, but Fleiss was already moving. Viveca was on her second pass of reviewing the hospital's publicly available accreditation summary on her phone when the automatic doors opened behind her, and Gordon Fleiss came out at a pace that was technically not running, but was doing everything running does except lift his feet. Dr. Holt. His voice had the specific texture of a man attempting to project calm while experiencing its opposite. I am so sorry. My office should have updated the system. This is completely unacceptable and I want you to know. Good morning, Gordon. He stopped. Viveca had not turned around yet. She turned around now, unhurriedly, the way she did most things. I was just reviewing your accreditation summary, she said, holding up her phone. You've had 3 infection control citations in 14 months. That's higher than the regional average. He blinked. Dr. Holt, I want to personally apologize for what happened in the lobby. T. Beaumont, she said. Badge number 2203. He was doing his job as he understood it. That's not the problem. She slid her phone into the pocket of her hoodie. The problem is that his understanding of his job was shaped by a triage process that used appearance as a proxy for authorization. That's a training issue, possibly a cultural one. Fleiss was nodding with the aggressive sincerity of a man who would agree with anything in this moment. Absolutely. Yes. We'll conduct a full review. I'll want to see the findings. Viveca picked up her travel mug and her canvas tote. Shall we go in? I believe we had a 9 o'clock. He held the door. She walked through it. Behind the reception desk, Kenzie watched them cross the lobby. She watched the way Fleiss walked beside this woman in the gray hoodie. Not ahead of her, not behind her. Beside her, half a step back, the way people walk when they have suddenly understood something about the room they are in. The conference room on the 4th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a parking structure, which was less scenic than the architect had probably intended, but did let in a great deal of morning light. There were 8 chairs around the table. Fleiss had arranged for coffee and water and a small plate of pastries that Viveca did not touch. She sat at the far end of the table, which was technically the head, though she had not chosen it for that reason. She had chosen it because it was closest to the windows, and she liked light. She set her fraying tote on the table, reached inside, and placed 3 folders on the surface with the quiet efficiency of someone who has done this 10,000 times, which she had. Give or take. Fleiss sat across from her and tried not to look at the folders. Before we begin, he said, I want to reiterate how deeply Gordon. She folded her hands on the table. I've been chair of this hospital's oversight board for 4 years. In that time, we've had 14 administrative transitions, 2 major accreditation reviews, and 1 very significant malpractice settlement that I'd rather not relitigate. She paused. I didn't come here this morning to talk about the lobby. I came here because your Q3 numbers have 3 line items that don't add up, and I'd like to understand them before the full board meeting next week. Fleiss looked at her. She looked back. The folders, she said, have the relevant pages flagged. He reached for the first one. The meeting ran until 11:40. Fleiss's assistant came in twice with messages he did not read. Viveca asked questions that were precise and patient, and that arrived after his answers, back at the same 3 line items with the relentlessness of water finding a crack. She was not angry. That was the thing Fleiss would think about later, in the way you think about things after they've happened, and you finally have the distance to see them clearly. She was not punishing him. She was not performing authority. She simply knew what she knew, and she waited, and she asked, and she knew again. By the end, 2 of the 3 line items had explanations that satisfied her. The third did not. She wrote something in a small notebook she produced from the tote bag, the same tote bag with the fraying strap, and she said that she would be following up with the finance subcommittee before Thursday. Then she closed the notebook and asked him how he was finding the transition so far, and she meant it, and he found, to his own surprise, that he told her the truth. She was back in the lobby at 11:53. Kenzie was still at the desk. The morning rush had thinned. The coffee kiosk had a short line. The fire exit by it, Viveca noticed as she passed, still had the door stopper wedged underneath. She stopped and removed it herself, set it against the wall, and continued toward the exit. She was almost to the doors when she heard it. Excuse me. She turned. It was Kenzie. Standing up from behind the desk, which was something receptionists at Kenzie's desk didn't usually do to stop departing visitors. Her face had the particular expression of someone who has been trying to decide something for the better part of 3 hours. I wanted to say. She stopped. Started again. I should have called his office when you asked me to. I should have just called. Viveca looked at her for a moment. Yes, she said. You should have. Not unkindly. Not as a weapon. Just as a fact, the way Viveca delivered most facts. Level and clear, and with the implicit understanding that facts, unlike feelings, don't require softening to be true. Kenzie nodded. She looked like she might say more and then didn't. Viveca pushed through the automatic doors. In the parking structure, T. Beaumont was on his break. He was eating a sandwich and looking at his phone and not thinking about the woman in the gray hoodie mostly because he had decided there was nothing to think about. He had done his job. She had not been in the system. He had asked her to leave, and she had left. That was how it was supposed to go. His phone buzzed. A message from the security supervisor. Report to HR at 2 p.m. Lobby incident this morning. He looked at it for a while. Then he thought about the woman in the gray hoodie. The way she had said, "I'd like to note, for the record," the way she had told him about the fire exit. The way she had walked out without looking back, like someone who had learned a long time ago that looking back is for people who aren't sure they're right. He put down his sandwich. Viveca's Volvo was on the second level. She unlocked it, put the tote in the back seat, and sat for a moment with the doors still open and the cool October air coming in. She was thinking about a morning, 21 years ago, when she was 33 and a junior member of a hospital ethics committee, and she had walked into a board meeting and set a report on the table, and the man at the head of that table had looked at her. Really looked at her, the same slide of the eye, the same half-second assessment, and had said, not quite under his breath, "Is she in the right room?" She had answered that question for the next 2 hours, with data, with precision, with the particular patience of someone who has learned that the best response to doubt is not anger, but the slow, accumulating weight of evidence. Afterward, 3 members of that board had sought her out specifically. One of them, a woman named Dr. Rowena Fitch, had said, "I've been watching you work for 2 hours, and I still don't know everything you know." That's not a compliment I give often. It was the best professional compliment Viveca had ever received. She thought about it sometimes when she was tired, or when someone looked at her hoodie and her fraying bag strap and made a decision before she'd said a word. The room is always talking. Most people are just too loud inside their own heads to hear it. She pulled the door shut, started the car. The cracked cup holder held her travel mug at its usual slight angle. She didn't mind. She drove out of the parking structure into the October light, past the front steps where she had stood that morning with her lukewarm coffee and a sparrow looking at her like it was waiting to see what she would do. She had done what she always did. She had waited. She had watched. She had remembered everything. And she had walked back in. Now, here's what I want you to think about. Nobody asked Viveca to announce herself. Nobody asked her to defend herself, or raise her voice, or explain what she had every right not to explain. She walked in the same way she walked into every room, as someone who had earned her place in it and didn't need a single other person in that room to confirm it. But here's the thing about dignity, the thing that sometimes gets lost in these stories when we talk about the big dramatic moment, the reveal, the comeuppance, the jaw that drops. Viveca's dignity was not located in that moment. It was not stored in Gordon Fleiss's face going white, or in Kenzie standing up from behind her desk, or in an HR notice buzzing on T. Beaumont's phone during his lunch break. Her dignity was in the fire exit, in the travel mug, in the 3 folders with the pages flagged, in 21 years of walking into rooms and knowing things and waiting for people to get quiet enough to hear them. The reveal didn't create her authority. It just made other people finally see what had been there the whole time. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever stood somewhere and felt someone's eyes move over you and make a decision before you opened your mouth, then you already know that the real question isn't whether you belong. You know you belong. The question is whether you're willing to stay in the room long enough for everyone else to figure it out. Viveca stayed. That's the whole story. If it hit something in you, leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you're thinking. And if you know someone who needed to hear this today, share it with them. Don't forget to like if you're still here and subscribe to Velvet Reckoning for more stories like this one. Because there are more. There are always more.